And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host and author, Sara DiVello, and I am so excited to welcome John Copenhaver, the award-winning author, to the show tonight. He's here to give us the inside scoop on his brand new book, Hall of Mirrors. John, welcome to Mystery and Thriller Mavens. Tell us about this book.
Yeah, so Hall of Mirrors is set in 1954, and it is the second in a trilogy that started with The Savage Kind, which was out a few years ago. And in that book, there are two young teenage girls who are infatuated with this mystery author named Ray Kane. And it's a little bit of a side plot of that movie, but then Ray Kane becomes that book, because Ray Kane becomes central to this book. Because Ray Kane's actually two gay men, a mixed race couple, writing underneath a pseudonym. And this is the 1950s in DC, and most of us know about the Red Scare. Not everyone knows about the Lavender Scare, which is a time when gay men and women were booted from the State Department because of their sexuality. And their sexuality was held against them because it was thought that they could be blackmailed for state secrets. Remember, this is sort of the fear of communism infiltrating American society was a big thing now. So one of my authors, Roger, works for the State Department. He's booted. And then shortly thereafter, he dies in an apartment fire under suspicious circumstances. And Lionel has to, therefore, sort of figure out what's going on, his lover. And then the girls from the first one enter and sort of help him solve the mystery. It's a lot about, it's a mystery, of course. It's kind of got thriller elements, but it's also a lot about what it means to sort of be passing at this time, what it means to live under the threat of, losing your job or losing your reputation. And so I'm kind of playing around and exploring those themes as well, the dark side of the 1950s.
Ooh, the dark side of the 1950s. Well, y'all know that we love historical here, so I am so excited to keep our 1950s theme continuing as we now turn from Florida to Washington, D.C., and from the golden age of Hollywood and Marilyn Monroe to the Lavender Scare and queer history, which is especially meaningful right now as it is Pride Month. So I'm especially excited to have this conversation, even though I am thrilled to interview and amplify queer voices throughout the year. Let's make an extra special welcome for Pride Month. Welcome. Yay for Pride, my favorite month. Renee is joining us from Southeast Florida. Hi, Renee. She says, hi, Sara and John.
Renee.
Robin joining us. Hi, Robin, saying hello, Sara and John. Hi, Robin. Oh, thanks for all the hearts up on Facebook. Yay. Okay, let's dive into some of the... Oh, Margaret Pinard, our fellow author, joining us from the Pacific Northwest. She said, did someone say historical? Ooh, and we summoned her. She hath appeared. Yes, Miss Margaret, you know we love historical. Welcome to the conversation. And let's kick off with our first question. John, have you written historical fiction in the past? This is from Renee.
Yes, in fact, this is my third book. My very first book is Dodging and Burning, and I'm clearly sort of focused on this post-war time period because it's about the end of the war and about a gay war photographer who takes a picture of a murdered woman, this crime scene, and shows this image. And then when the two people he shows it to takes them back to it, and there's no corpse. It's all about like images and that time, and also about like the effects and trauma of war. So I started writing historical there, and I'm still like trying to like sort of sink my teeth into this time period. Savage Kind was in 1948, so I keep on progressing a little bit, moving through the 1950s. Like I think it's interesting because I don't necessarily think of myself as, I don't think I entered like writing novels thinking I'm going to write historical fiction. I just kind of got drawn to that time period. And so I have found myself in the position of being a historical mystery writer. Sort of weird, but it's true.
why do you think you said you find yourself drawn to this period? What draws you into the 1950s, John? Why? What resonates with you about this time? What do you like about it?
Yeah, well, so the first whole sort of like a series of like kind of almost thinking about myself. But my first impulse about the time period is sort of what you were talking about with Lori Roy earlier, is that, you know, it's just like in terms of like the style, both, you know, the clothing and all that, but also like a lot of the film noir, the writing of the time period. It was just a very stylish time. And I really wanted to evoke that feeling. You know, I'm a great lover of the classic film noir. I'm a great lover of the clothing and the trapping and the style of the time period. At the same time, like I also knew that it was a really ugly time period, especially if you were queer or if you were a person of color. It was incredible discrimination, a very sort of conservative-minded time period, and all fear mongering, you know, surrounding communism, and of course nuclear, you know, potential nuclear war as we sort of move on through. And so I think like there's like these two things, like great beauty and great horror at the same time, and it's just too much to kind of not get in and want to sort of explore. And so I think that was really what drew me to it. Honestly, I think the other more personal reason is that, particularly Judy and Philip, but my first novel has really pretty significant female characters in it as well. I mean, they're the narrators. Is that it's my kind of my mom's era. My mom's 93. Sort of a personal connection to that, trying to figure out like, who's my mother? Is she a result of this time period, and that kind of thing is going on as well, I think. So.
Robin is saying, you are a new author to me, which I love, by the way. I just want to pause on that because my goal here on Mystery and Thriller Mavens is to connect readers to their favorite authors and introduce them to their next favorite authors. So yay for that. And then Robin goes on to say, but the name sounded familiar. Yup, your book, The Savage Kind, is on my Left Coast crime shelf and has a wonderful cover too. So yay for Left Coast. John, did you love the cover?
Yeah, I love my covers. I've had the same designer for all three. Yeah, they're really striking. Like, his name's Derek Thornton. His design firm's called Notch Design, and you know, my publisher hires him to make the covers. But you know, there's always been sort of an open dialogue and consultation about them. And so, you know, every cover is really feels integrated into like what the book is about. Like it's kind of part of the experience of reading. So, you know, we could have a little conversation about like where did Derek get his inspiration? How's it, you know, what's the thread from the visuals to the sort of interior? And so I've been very lucky, and I think I'm very excited. He kind of gets each one gets a little better. Like I just love Hall of Mirrors. So yeah, it's very cool.
Yay. Well, Renee is saying she loves historical mystery fiction. Renee, see, we're vibing as always. We're totally vibing. Thank you for saying that. So very exciting news, you guys. You know that I love the option of a signed book, and John is going to Murder by the Book at the end of the month. Is this correct, John? Or are the rumors true?
I don't think I'm going to. I wish. That sounds great. No.
John told me this. Was this a lie? Was this a lie? Well, anyway, we have books tonight, so you can order your copy. Here is the link, and then you can DM me. You can DM me your receipt from our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore, and I will get a signed Mystery and Thriller Maven special book plate to John to sign. So here is the link to order. DM me your receipt. I have gorgeous Mystery and Thriller Maven, and my logo is, of course, the noir 1950s woman in the hat. So, or maybe she's 1920s. I don't know. She's historical and she's cool. So here's the link. Here's the link. And I now realize I misspoke. I apologize. I was just talking to Lori Roy, and Ace Atkins blurbed her book. Ace is coming on the 24th. Ace is going to Murder by the Book, but I will still get you signed copies. DM me your receipt to on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or my email address, and I will get anyone who wants a signed, personalized, gorgeous Mystery and Thriller Maven bookplate from John Copenhaver, award-winning author. So here is that link. Renee wants to live. John, where are you based? Where do you live?
I live in Richmond, Virginia now, but that's sort of recent. For many years, I lived in Washington, D.C., which is where all my books, for the most part, are set. And Dodging and Burning is a little bit in Virginia, which is where I grew up. So very much a mid-Atlantic guy. But yeah, it's interesting. Like Richmond, I was asked yesterday whether I thought Washington, D.C. was a southern city. I was like, it's an interesting question. It is. There's a level of it that's definitely a southern city. Richmond is absolutely a southern city. It's not far away, but very different place. But I love it both places I love.
Well, it's interesting because I think Washington, D.C. is almost like another character. You know, the setting becomes a character in this book.
Yeah.
And so it's good to know that you have spent, you know, time on the ground there to be able to infuse that that realness, that depth of knowledge to that. Renee saying, John, you're a new author to me too, and she's so happy to meet you. Yay! Yay! Robin is chiming in and saying that she loves the noir and the glamour of the 1950s with a fear underbelly. Ooh, well said, Robin. I love that. Yeah. Let's take a peek at some of the praise that John's book has earned, kicking off with Naomi Hirahara, author of the Mary Higgins Clark award-winning. I'm going to pop this up so we can all read it together. And she says, a Rubik's Cube of a period mystery, readers will become increasingly obsessed about the intersection of a biracial ghostwriter seeking justice for his dead partner and two fans who have been on a hunt for a serial killer. Prevailing McCarthy-era attitudes about race and sexual orientation inform the story, yet characters reign supreme. By the end of Hall of Mirrors, I cared desperately for the well-being of the three seeking to embrace their truth under oppressive circumstances. Congratulations on that rave review.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Naomi's great.
And she is not the only... What's that?
She's a great writer, too, so that meant a lot.
Oh, fabulous. She is not the only one raving. Publishers Weekly also chiming in, saying Copenhaver keeps things moving at a relentless pace as he introduces multiple narrators and a plethora of plot twists. Queer history aficionados will find the depiction of the period's anti-gay political paranoia fascinating. This series deserves a long life. Congratulations on that rave review as well. And the Library Journal also piping in with this praise. Let's pop it up so we can all take a peek. Saying the second in the Nightingale trilogy, Following the Savage Kind, is a mystery, but the historical elements add complexity as the author explores issues of passing as straight or white, concealing an identity at a time of physical and emotional violence toward LGBTQIA+ and Black people. And so, yeah, I think it's so important to, you know, to acknowledge the truth of history and to talk about it. And interestingly, I found in my research for Broadway Butterfly, which takes place in 1923, and part of it takes place in DC, which is a true story featuring a gay couple as well, that when I spoke to one of the professors at Amherst College, who's a professor of sexuality and women and gender studies at the turn of the century, she said that in the 1920s, it was really interesting how they regarded sexuality, because culturally it wasn't who you are, it was just something you did. Whereas now it's almost like you are queer or you are straight, and that is part of your identity versus an action or something that you do. What was it like in the 1950s?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because we're sort of making the transition to thinking about in terms of identity, but we're not fully there yet. And I think that part of the reason why we sort of gathered around the idea of it being an identity or incorporating it is because we needed to organize politically. To sort of, it'd be fine if people could just do what they wanted to do. We didn't think about it, but you have to sort of, find your fellow queer people, because you have to organize to help, us fight against things like the Lavender Scare, which was, this is government sanctioned, Eisenhower sanctioned, dismissals. I mean, we talk about this guy as a great president, and in some ways he participated, honestly, kind of holding his nose. He didn't 100% approve of it, but it's a political thing. So, we have to fight against it. To do that, you have to find a way to sort of create a platform and create some energy around it. So, and I think that's been true ever since. I think that's part of the thing. In the 20s, people were a little more open briefly, right? And it was like, we always think of this thing as sort of, things being progressive as a sort of state climb, but really it's more cyclical.
Yes.
And, so it's it's fascinating to think about how, even the way we think about in terms of identity. I teach a queer lit class at VCU, and a lot of the students there, think kind of that everything started with Stonewall in the, in the late 60s. And I'm like, no. There's much more.
Exactly. Renee wants to know, what's the IA stand for? So I stands for intersex, and A stands for asexual. Renee, thank you so much for asking.
Yes, great question.
Great question. And she would like to know, do we spy a Marilyn Monroe poster behind you, John? That would be very open. Tell us the story. What's going on with that fabulous pinup girl poster?
Okay, so this is a photographer named Thomas Allen, and it's not Marilyn Monroe, but what he does is he takes old pulp covers of like traditional pulp novels, he cuts them out and kind of layers them and then photographs them. So actually kind of a photograph collage. It's a little hard to see here, but he has actually done some book covers, not mine, but he's done some amazing book covers. I think The Air Affair, if you know that book, I think he did the book cover to that. So you may just around, but it's pretty amazing sort of approach to it. I definitely look him up. There are all these great images. Yeah,
it's
Thomas
so
Allen.
beautiful. It's so beautiful. Renee saying thank you, and the poster is so cool. Isn't it beautiful, Renee? John is joining us from Northeast Ohio. John, welcome to the conversation. So we just came off of the Lori Roy interview where we were talking about Marilyn Monroe and her infamous walk. And then it was so funny because I remembered that in chapter 2 of John's book, he referenced a certain model-like walk. And I was like, oh my gosh, is this a Marilyn Monroe reference? Have we come full circle?
What's interesting is that what happened is that there was in film generally, Marilyn, of course, but in film generally, there was such a stylization to everything, how people spoke, how they moved, the clothes they wore, and I think people, what you see, of course, with films, as with films today, people start mimicking or modeling that,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Robin would like to know, John, do you think there is a bit of a new version of the Lavender Scare rearing its head in the current political climate? Let's pause there and share first what the Lavender Scare is, because you guys, I will admit, I did not know until I was on a panel with Mr. Lev A.C. Rosen at the Boston Book Festival in October. This was a brand new term to me. This was a brand new piece of American history to me. John, can you tell us what it was? And then can you answer Robin's question?
Sure. So essentially, it's a subset of the Red Scare, and the Red Scare had a lot to do with the fear that communism was going to infiltrate the American government, even American psyche, and corrupt the sort of the idea of America, right? Which is sort of a conservative concept of and very sort of one kind of idea of America. And so, that's where you get stuff like, the blacklist, the Hollywood blacklist, that people know more famously. But the Lavender Scare was a time when this fear that gay men and women, particularly, could be, because of their sexuality, blackmailed by nefarious communist forces to spill state secrets, so to turn against their country. And so the idea here was that they couldn't possibly work in the government. So 5,000 men and women were booted from the federal government. I think about 1,700 were not allowed into positions because of their sexuality.
I did not know those numbers.
And this is the thing that's particularly nasty about it. They would publish the names. So people's lives were destroyed, and many gay men men and women, but gay men particularly, committed suicide because it was so disgraceful. And that's why you have like Lionel, the first read of what happened. Read of what happened to Rogers, that he committed suicide. So that must be. And so I think that
let's pause there and explain to everyone who hasn't read it. So John's book opens with our main character, one of our main characters, Roger, standing outside as the firemen rush into his building because it is burning down, and his writing partner and lover, Lionel is outside. Lionel's outside watching his burning building. His lover and writing partner Roger inside as the firefighters rush in, and they think that Roger has taken his own life, but Lionel does not think he has.
Right, he by it. And I think that's sort of the narrative that gay men, or you will, like this, it fit a certain narrative at play at the time. And of course Lionel knows better and suspects foul play, and I will not say more, but I think that it's really an upsetting time period. And to answer the second part of the question is I think that the real thing about the Lavender Scare, I think one other note is that very few incidents of gay men being blackmailed for their sexuality and spilling state secrets ever occurred. And even the few did, they weren't particularly important state secrets. Much more damning things happened, and was spilled in a very different way. And so, like, if you've seen Oppenheimer, right, that's an example. And so I think that it really wasn't about that. It was about Joseph McCarthy, Roy Cohn, also a gay man, complicated, and J. Edgar Hoover and other political forces using fear to leverage power. And of course, that's exactly what's going on today. The hatred of trans, particularly people, is about leveraging fear to gain power. That's all it is. There's nothing really to fear, even less now than back in the 1950s in terms of that idea. So certainly, yeah, and that's where we get the book banning and all this stuff going on, which is pretty atrocious.
Yeah, when we see the systematic denial, subversion, and attempted elimination of another person's identity or part of their identity or their orientation, is when we start to think about has only to do with hatred and bigotry and power, and nothing to do with anything other than that.
Right.
Robin, thank you for the great question. John, for the great answer. Renee saying this is so sad. It is so sad. Thank you. Raul, welcome to the conversation, joining us from YouTube, saying, John, can you explain how you developed the Lionel character and the serial killer? And was there an actual killer who targeted LGBTQ plus individuals during the 1950s or 60s? Great question, Raul. Thank you.
Yeah, so no, the serial killer kind of line of the story was completely my invention. And that the serial killer actually emerges in the first book of The Savage Kind. And he's really a character that is more symbolic of what the government will do to sort of cover up its own interests, because he's also a character who has carried government secrets. And so in one hand, you have gay men and women being booted for political gain, essentially, and then you have, on the other hand, the government covering up a horrible serial killer. He's actually a serial killer of young girls. The other part of your question is developing Lionel's character. Yeah, Lionel was really sort of a passion project for me, because I felt like I really wanted to center another a biracial or mixed race individual, and but I wanted to be a gay man. Judy is also biracial. The difference between the two is that Judy passes for white, and Wild doesn't even know that she is in fact biracial. Lionel doesn't. And so I wanted that sort of contrast in this time period. What does someone do if they're passing and with all this threat and danger, and then to them, and then if someone can't pass, and how does that work? And exploring those issues. So, there's not easy questions, those answers, by the way. But, that's what we do, is we kind of ask hard questions, and then you kind of write a story exploring them.
I love that. Raul, thank you for the fabulous question. John, thank you for the fabulous answer. Y'all, the book is out now, and you can order it from our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore. That is, of course, Murder by the Book. So whether you're joining us tonight on Facebook or YouTube, you can click this link and get your mitts on Hall of Mirrors, which Ava Berry, author of Double Exposure, raves, it deftly toes the line between harmless voyeurism and the type of subversive curiosity that turns fans into predators. She says, you float through the story, an unseen guest watching everything unfold, noting all of the beautiful period details that anchor the narrative of the 1950s, from the brass bar carts, bold wallpaper, until all at once you realize that this perverse kind of observation may have led to the death of an innocent man. If Architectural Digest started a true crime beat, Copenhaven would be the magazine's star writer, and I would be begging to apprentice, because that's my two favorite things.
I love that. I love the end of the quote. It just always makes me chuckle.
So good. Okay, let's talk about that title. Renee wants to know, how did you come up with it?
Yeah, Hall of Mirrors. Yeah, I think that it's an incredibly important metaphor to the book. The first sort of the genesis of the idea was that many noir narratives deal with doubles and mirroring, and it's a reoccurring theme. And there's a reason for that, because I think whenever you're setting doubles up, you're sort of also setting up a contrast, so there's doubling here, but it's always a little bit different. You got Lionel and Roger, mixed race gay couple, where one member of the couple doesn't pass, and you've got Philippa and Judy, another queer couple, but Judy does pass. And I think you've also have this idea of people like the mirror imagery, people like reflecting back on themselves. Are they able to see who they really are? Is who we see in the mirror who we really are? That kind of question. And I think there's actually in the book they get this conversation. Judy and Philip get in a conversation with Lionel and Roger about what their favorite film noir is, and I think, if I'm remembering right, in my own book, Judy loves The Lady from Shanghai, which is a very famous Orson Welles funhouse sequence that has it's crazy. It's all this mirror imagery. If you've never seen that movie, it's a little incoherent, but that final scene is just amazing. So I would highly recommend it.
John, do you have a favorite noir movie?
I have many. It's a very hard one to answer. I have some obvious ones that we all love. Out of the Past,
Rear Window, North by Northwest.
Yes, I mean, what Hitchcock. I love them all, and I keep on mentioning this one because not that many people have seen it. But The Locket, which is it's so bizarre, and I love it so much. But it's a story within a story within a story. It has deeper flashbacks. The structure is bananas. I don't think anyone would necessarily structure a film this way, but it works. And it's kind of somewhere between gothic and noir. So I don't know. I just spread the word on that one. I also love Scarlet Street, which is
I don't know that one either.
Yeah.
Man, I have some catching up to do. Renee's saying she thinks the title is so great. I totally agree. And the cover is just so gorgeous. Raul saying Hall of Mirrors sounds like a thriller that would make a powerful film. Oh my God, I thought the same thing, Raul. We're vibing. Or limited series on streaming. Any possibilities?
Not yet, but if you know somebody, I agree. I have a very cinematic imagination, so I'm always sort of slightly imagining what I'm writing and how it might play out in film. And so, of course, that would be a dream, right? I would love that, but no,
we all love that. We're cheering. We're going to manifest it. Everyone manifest it
There we
together.
go.
Yay. Y'all, we are out of time. Time has you having this much fun. Here is the link again to order from our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore. That is, of course, Murder by the Book. So click and order whether you're on Facebook or YouTube with us tonight and get your myths on the Hall of Mirrors too. John, thank you so much for joining us and coming on to give us the inside scoop on Lionel and Judy and the rest of your cast. And please come back and chat with us next time your book is out. Your writing is just so beautiful. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Sara. Thanks for being on.
All right, y'all, that is a wrap on this Mystery Monday. I hope your week is off to a killer start. May the pages and the days fly by, and I'll be back with you next Monday. And live Constantine. Stay tuned.